from the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hello, everybody, once again to Talking Catholic, the official podcast of the Catholic community of South Jersey. I'm Pete Sanchez, your co-host with Michael Walsh. Mike, good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, Pete. How are you?
I'm doing well. It is a cool fall day here. It's
finally. That's what it is. Finally, a cool fall day.
Yeah, the last couple of days have the weather has been a little uneasy.
Yesterday was an oppressive, awful, humid, 82 degrees, 900% humidity.
It was that day was sandwiched between on Monday. Was it Monday or Tuesday? We had the torrential downpours, the flash floods. And yesterday was it was very strange because I think it did rain in the morning at some point, but then it was just pretty hot and it felt like soup. And then today I walked out, I walked my son out to put him on the bus this morning to go to school. And I felt that it was the first time I felt that crispness hit my skin, the crispness of the crispness of the air or Christmas. And I was so happy. I was thrilled. Yeah. No, it feels nice. It feels nice. If I drank pumpkin spice lattes, this would be the day I was waiting for. But I don't, so I'm fine with it anyway. I don't either. We talked about this before, but I love one of the things I love you're talking about is the crispness. I love too just when you walk on the sidewalks and you feel those leaves, you hear that crunch. That's the sound of fall to me. That is, if you talk about what is the sound of fall, it is that crunch of the leaves.
I agree. I was thinking more of the crunch of biting into an apple cider donut, but either way works.
So do you really get a crunch though?
If I like a donut that's got actually that really does have a crispiness to it, like a cake donut that's been in the fryer almost like 2 seconds too long, just to create a crust instead of a soft outside. It's got a crusty outside. Man, that's the best. And people often will call them an old-fashioned donut. I love old fashions.
Old-fashioned donuts. You know what? They don't have that tail anymore though. To dip them into the coffee.
Yeah. Dunkin' Donuts stopped doing that.
They changed their name. Dunkin' Donuts.
Just Dunkin' now. I think it's because they're competing with Starbucks.
They are. It's funny, we're talking about this because I've been trying to look for. I'm a big fan of bookstores and coffee shops, and I was talking to a friend of mine about Bill Watson, actually, the friend of the show. We were talking about how we're both trying to find late night coffee shops in this area that are open like late. Because not many, they're pretty much closed at 10.
I think that's because most people don't drink coffee before bed.
Well, maybe not so much. They can serve other stuff. Like, I don't drink coffee, but when I say coffee shop, I mean just a place to read, to write, just kind of...
You may want to look into, there's a place called Death of the Fox in Clarksboro, New Jersey, and it is a brewery/coffee house. Now, I don't know what time it closes, but I can tell you that it is some of the best coffee and hot chocolate and beer, for that matter, that I've ever had. It's a little place in a strip mall in Clarksboro. It's next to the Cinder Bar, if anybody's familiar with that location. But it's really good. Excellent coffee and hot chocolate and beer. And it's this cute little cafe style place. I'm imagining you sitting there, typing out a Catholic Star Herald story or column or poem or something like that as you're sipping your late evening decaffeinated beverage.
Yeah. I joked that I have so many books I could probably open my own little lending library somewhere. Just our own little independent bookstore. But
that's been the nicest little 4 minutes of chit-chat. We've not talked about a single news item coming up.
No, well... Funny enough, Mike, okay. I have them right here.
Oh, there you
go. And these are coming up actually next week. I'm really excited for the opening of the Cathedral Speaker Series. It's going to start here, 642 Market Street at the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception. They're going to start every month. It's going to be at Wednesdays at 7 p.m. They're going to have a speaker come into the cathedral and talk Just a nice little formation, faith formation. This is the next one is going to be, or the first one is going to be Sister Sarah Lamb. She's an Immaculate Heart of Mary. She's going to talk on prayer and spirituality. And she's also the director of the Immaculate Heart of Mary Literacy Center for immigrants who are learning English and attaining their citizenship. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be on this Wednesday, October 3rd. It's free, open to the public at 7 p.m. Come on out to that. And Mike, a week from today, exciting, the Justice for All dinner.
Very exciting, yes.
That is at Resorts Hotel and Casino.
Yes.
In Atlantic City, starting at 6 p.m. Thursday, October 4th. With Sister Norma Pimentel. She has been working on the McAllen, Texas, I think. Mm-hmm. Is he working on the border in the Mexican-U.S. border. She's going to be the keynote speaker, and also the Disciples of Mercy from this diocese will be honored. So come on out to that. That is, isn't it Catholic Charities Camden.org?
It is CatholicCharitiesCamden.org /JFA 2018 is the URL address for tickets and to learn more. There's the Star Herald. I think each of the last probably 5 weeks or so has had a report about from our beloved Mary McCusker, talking about Sister Norma's work, the work of the Disciples of Mercy around South Jersey, and this is the 15th anniversary of the Justice for All dinner.
Yeah, that's big.
And what that's been able to provide for the clients of Catholic Charities of Camden for the last decade and a half. So certainly you can go back in those previous editions and do some reading, all available online, of course, starherald.org.
Yeah,
right?
CatholicStarHerald.org.
But I really hope people will come out. It's a great event. Last year was the first time we held it in Atlantic City, and it was fantastic. We're certainly expecting it to be just as good this year. And I'm actually having a conversation with our MC tonight about the layout for next week's agenda. So it should be fun. Should be good stuff. Yeah.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah.
So come on out and the proceeds go for all the good work the Catholic Charities does.
Yes.
So come on out. And then we have also next week. Next week is action-packed, Mike, in Wildwood. We're going down the shore. And again, the Wildwood Convention Center from October 5th through the 7th is the Catholic Renewal Weekend. And the title is Behold, I Make All Things New.
Which I still haven't been to yet. I need to make an effort to get down there next week.
Make it a shore weekend. Go down to Atlantic City on Thursday, stay overnight, and then head on over to Wildwood on Friday.
Well, you know what? I am going to be down there. I'm going to be in Absecon on Friday night taking pictures at the Holy Spirit High School football game. It'll also be the second night of the prayer vigils. Will be that same Friday. So I'm going to go to St. Catherine Drexel for those on Friday evening, then over to Holy Spirit, and then maybe I'll head down to the conference somewhere around that in all my free time.
Well, I will be at the second Mass as well, probably the one in St. Andrew the Apostle in Gibbsboro.
Yeah.
It worked out. I'm actually doing a story on a seminarian who's working on a few guys who are celebrating their pastoral years. So that'll be so heading down there. But this Catholic Renewal Weekend, the MC is Father Rene Canales, with guest speakers Father Ariel Hernandez and Father Jim Blount. The adults, if you want to go, it's $40 in advance, $50 at the door. And it's neat because there's not only an adult track for this weekend, there's a youth track. So youth are invited as well to come. There'll be praise, worship, great speakers to kind of get you on fire, renew your faith. And for youth, it's $25 for the first youth. And this is $20 additional. This is for youth ministers if you want to come bring a group. And find more information out at Camden Diocese CatholicRenewal.com. And Sunday,
Actually, I'm going to interject there because there was something on our list that we didn't talk about because sometimes people don't listen to the podcast soon enough, but it occurred to me that there's 2 weeks of this, so I wanted to bring it up just in case anybody hears this beforehand. So this Friday evening on September 28th, we're going to be the diocese is hosting the first of 2 prayer service evenings, and they are for they're titled, an evening. I'm actually reading this off my phone right now, so I'm not pulling it up as I would like to. Here we go. An evening of prayer for the victims of abuse and reparations for the sins of the church. So the first one's going to be Friday, September 28th at Our Lady of Hope Parish, St. Agnes Church in Blackwood at 7 p.m. And then the following Friday on October 5th, they're going to be held at 6 churches around the diocese, also at 7 p.m. St. Joseph's of the Worker in Haddonfield, Church of the Incarnation in Mantua, St. Andrew the Apostle in Gibbsboro, Christ the Good Shepherd in Vineland, St. Catherine Drexel in Egg Harbor Township, and Our Lady Star of the Sea in Cape May. These prayer services are an important opportunity for us to add our spiritual weight to the legal, psychological, and pastoral work that's already been done in our state and our region and across the world, combating the scandals related to the clergy sex abuse crisis and the cover-ups that followed. This is something that Bishop Sullivan has been very open and honest about since the Pennsylvania grand jury report released 2 months ago, or a month and a half ago at this point. But this is, even though that's when everything became public again as part of his administration, and administrations before him, ever since 2002, this has been at the forefront of what the Catholic Church has preached. And with, the wound being reopened again, necessarily and deservedly, in addition to everything that the diocese is doing, and the New Jersey has created this task force to look into all the dioceses, he felt it was important that there'd be a spiritual aspect to this too, where we can come together. Some people might say, well, this is a problem of the bishops and Catholic leaders, and yes, it is, but we're all part of the same church, so let's come together to pray for the health and well-being of those who have been victimized, but also to make sure that we as a Catholic Church remember to do all we can, that we must never forget that we have a duty to provide safety to everyone at all times. Something that I know has been at the forefront of the Catholic Church for the last 16 years, but this is a reminder of how important it is that we continue to be vigilant in this way. So everyone is invited to this. We expect most, if not all, of the clergy of the diocese to be in attendance on the 28th. And then certainly anybody can attend the services on the 5th. So I'll be there. So feel free to come out and bend my ear a little bit. I have been talking at masses lately on a few different topics, and every time I've had a conversation or I've done a presentation, people have come up afterwards to ask me about the scandals and how they're dealing with it, how we're dealing with it. So hopefully there is some catharsis that comes with these as well. But this is not something we want hidden. This is something that we should be talking about publicly as Catholics. So I just wanted to make sure that we didn't inadvertently overlook that in the news.
I think that's perfect. Thanks, Mike.
Okay.
I'll be there too.
Okay.
So that's tomorrow or Friday and the next 2 Fridays. Mm-hmm. So then coming up on October 7th, Sunday, October 7th, it is Respect Life Month. And the Diocese of Camden is coming together in all 6 counties for Life Chains. So you can find more information. The Life and Justice Ministries is sponsoring this. There's a page you can go on dioceseofcamden.org or camdendiocese.org to find the list. A lot of different locations, a lot of different places and times where you can pray and stand up for life. The most important thing from womb to tomb, as they say, it's important to stand up for life as, that's a sacred, to uphold the sacred dignity of everybody. that's created in the image of God. So for more information, call the Life and Justice Ministry office at 856-583-2910. This is the Life Change Sunday, October 7th, all over the diocese in each county, each of the 6 counties. And 2 weeks from Saturday, October 13th, is I'm very excited for this, the Marian pilgrimage to the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C. We had, Mike and I had Father Jim Bartoloma on talking about this a few weeks ago. And I'm excited. Do you know your plans yet?
Yes, I am definitely not going, which I'm really bummed out about because, but it just ended up we had way too many conflicts going that weekend, so I cannot make it. But my son and wife will be on a camping weekend with the Scouts, and I will be on dog duty, looking after the pooch. I have a sneaking suspicion that we will be my wife and I will be trading off on nights camping with the Scouts, because really, how often can you really expect any parent to willfully do 2 nights of camping with a bunch of 10-year-olds? So I figure one of us will do one night and one of us will do the other night. You
should talk to my advertising, one of the guys in the Star Herald, Paul. He's big into camping.
Oh, really?
I mean,
I love camping.
He loves it. Yeah. I mean, it's just get out in nature. But well, hopefully, Mike, not this time, but next time.
Hopefully.
Or even, just come on. But that's just.
But I'll tell you this,
need to get there.
I'm looking forward to seeing your travel logs from the Marian pilgrimage like you did 2 years ago. So I'm hoping you'll do the same thing again, put it up on the Catholic Star Herald website for people who can't be there, with maybe some interviews, some real-time interviews, and some if you can pull off a little Facebook Live while you're there, maybe, and get some stuff up so that we can get a feel for it and the taste of it while it's going on.
That would be. I'm excited. I'm going to go with the group, the parish. This pilgrimage will have Mass with Bishop Sullivan. There will be a rosary said, a cultural in different languages, multilingual rosary. There will be crowning of the Blessed Virgin, the patroness of the United States and also patroness of the Diocese of Camden. There's time to tour the gift shop and the bookstore. There'll be time for lunch. So come on out. You can call the parish office to figure out if they're having a bus to DC that day, or call 856-939-1769. Come on out. So Mike, who do we have? I'm excited for this guest.
You are you?
I am. Who?
Okay. We have with us today Sister Mary Cronin from Catholic Charities, one of the newest employees of Catholic Charities, the head of the prison ministry program, and we've actually had people from the prison ministry program on before, and it's always been one of our favorite conversations. So Sister Mary Cronin, thank you for joining us today.
Well, it's very nice to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
You're very welcome. Now, one of the things we actually promoted in previous weeks was the prison ministry program you did this past Saturday. I'm told that not only was it one of the best programs that Catholic Charities has ever hosted, but it was also one of the most well-attended. So can you give us a flavor of what that program was like on Saturday?
Well, it was really fun putting it together, and I enjoyed doing it. And we had, I think we have about 60 volunteers who go into the jails and prisons here in South Jersey, and I would say at least 50 of them were able to come on Saturday. And we also had other people that really aren't doing prison ministry, but they are trying to discern whether they have a calling to prison ministry. So they came, and then there were other people who just read about it and thought, well, that's going to be interesting. What is this all about? I think I'll go and find out. And then prison ministry covers a lot of aspects. It's just not people going into the prison, but we have volunteers who make rosaries and help with prison ministry in so many different ways. Right now, we're thinking about one of our hopes is to get a ministry together for the families of the incarcerated, because they really feel so alone out there, and they really need support and help. So that's going to be one of my goals. And then, of course, there's the reentry program. And there's a lot of other programs that prison ministry could have, but our time and resources are kind of limited.
You had mentioned people discerning the idea of working in prison ministry, and I think a lot of people get the impression that there's a fear level that if you've never been around prisons, been around prisoners, understand incarceration, deeply, it can be a little frightening to consider it. But what's the reality of prison ministry? I mean, I've talked to a number of prison chaplains over the years. How quickly does that fear subside when you've been in prison ministry?
Well, I think there's a special calling to go into the prisons to do that type of prison ministry. It's not for everyone. It depends on a person's past and also their physical condition and their emotional, psychological condition. But I've worked with volunteers almost all my life, and I have found that the prison ministry volunteers are very, very special. There's something different about them, and I can't put my finger on it just yet. But they're very, very dedicated, and they realize that it is a dangerous situation. At our conference on Saturday, we did have Chaplain Moyer, who's the chaplain supervisor of Southwoods Prison, and he was one of our guest speakers, and his whole talk was on the do's and don'ts of going into prisons and the dangers that are involved in that.
And for lack of a better word, is there a vetting process for volunteers? Like, do they have to? Is there some? If say where I volunteer, would I have to? Maybe like a background check, or because you were talking about be prepared mentally and emotionally. Like, do you have to check that before somebody wants to come in and help, or how does that work?
Well, I think some people don't know whether they have it or not until they actually go in and find out. But I when I first came here, I said, well, we need more volunteers. We especially need priests to go into the prisons, but nowadays there is a shortage of priests. And so nationally, we have been advised to train and get really good lay volunteers who go in, and then occasionally they sort of prepare the way for the priest to go in, and then occasionally a priest would go in to say Mass or hear confession. But so what I did was I had an announcement in all of the parish bulletins about prison ministers, and I was surprised. I got about 30 responses to that. 30 people called and said they were interested. Now, not all of them were actually interested in going into the prison, but so out of that 30, I would say there's 20 that I think really are going to be going into the prisons. And the program for preparation is, first of all, they have to have an interview with me. So they can either come to my office in Camden, or I can go meet them. It's kind of fun to go meet them because this Tuesday I'm going down to Cape May, and I hope the weather's good. I'm going down to Cape May to interview some of them. And I've met some of them in restaurants at different places, and I've gone to the homes. And then some of them do come to my Camden office. But that's the first thing, to interview. And then they will have to get a letter of recommendation from their pastor. And then we decide what prison or jail that they would like to go in. And then they get the clearance application for that, and they fill that out. And sometimes it takes a month, at least a month, to have the clearance approved, and sometimes it takes several months, almost a year. So it's not an easy thing to get. So after their clearance is approved, then they have to go for an orientation, and usually the orientation lasts at least 3 hours, and part of the orientation is a little tour of the facility. Some of the facilities do require more than that. One of them required that I do an online series of courses regarding prison ministry, and I found that very interesting. Then after everything is cleared and they have their clearance to go into the facility, then I place them with an already experienced prison minister who's going in as a mentor, or if there's a group of volunteers going in, I place them in that group so that they can get some experience and see if this is really where they are being called.
I know in addition to laity, we also have a number of deacons who are prison chaplains as well. A few of them that have been in law enforcement as well. I always find that interesting that you go from law enforcement to being a minister in a prison. I always thought that was a good connection. I myself have a background in not prison ministry, but I worked for another nonprofit that handled several halfway houses in South Jersey, and then certainly here I've been in a number of. I think I've been in all of the prisons for masses with Bishop that are always particularly special. I think he has a strong inclination to prison ministry himself, and he's always been very good about making it to the prisons, particularly around the holidays, to do masses. So I think, matter of fact, we have one coming up for Thanksgiving in a few months, right? That you're putting together.
On November 18th, he's going to Southern State, and on December 20th, he's going to Bayside.
Yeah.
How many prisons are in this diocese?
I want to say it's...
Well, there's 3 state prisons, 1 federal prison, and 5 county jails.
Right.
Now, how does that? What is the difference between a state and a federal? I unfortunately have never been to a prison in my life. Visited the diocese. I didn't think I need to change that with the bishop coming, but the closest I've probably ever been to a prison was when I was in Boy Scouts. We were going to visit a prison, and then the day of the prison visit, it was canceled. So we didn't do that. But so, Sister, can you tell what's the difference between the county, federal, and state prisons?
Well, the county prison, most of the inmates do not stay there very long. They only stay there maybe a year or 2. And as soon as they're arrested, they are put in the county jail. And so there are people there who have not had a trial. They're waiting for their trial to come up. So there could be people there that will be released because after they go through the trial, they are found not to be guilty. There are people there usually after their trial. If they are sentenced to life or several years, then they would go to a state prison or a federal prison. So for the county jails, they're not in there very long.
Yeah.
State prisons, that's different. They could be in there for life, or they could be in there for a shorter time.
How long have you been in prison ministry?
Well, I started beginning of February, so I'm kind of new at this. But that wasn't really my first experience in prison ministry. It started years ago when I was living in a convent. It's a long story. I don't know if you want to hear this.
This is a long podcast.
Yeah,
so we like long stories.
Well, I was living in a convent, and one day a sister said to me, I invited Father, and I forget his name, but anyway, Father for dinner tonight, and I just realized I have a meeting and I'm not going to be here. Would you entertain him when he comes for dinner? Well, I was delighted to do that, so I said, oh, sure. So I had no idea who he was or what he did. So we were talking at dinner, and all of a sudden he started to talk about the prison. And I said, I've always wanted to go into a prison. And I said, you are so lucky to be going into a prison. I guess I'm a little bit strange, but anyway, that's what I said. And he said, are you serious? And I said, yes, I am serious. Well, I found out he was the chaplain in one of the state prisons. He said, well, there's a man in prison who really needs someone to come and visit him. He has no family. Would you be willing to do that? And he said, but it has to be a real serious commitment. It can't be a one-time thing. And I said, oh, sure, I'd love to do that. So he got the clearance and everything. And I remember the first day I showed up there, I pulled into the parking lot and got out of the car. And on the roof of the prison, there were all these guards lined up, and they all had machine guns. Mm-hmm. And I said, this is great. I love adventure. This is wonderful. Oh, I'm really going to love this. So I guess some people would have gotten in the car and
driven
taken
off,
but not me. So then I went in and I got locked in that little cage, like you do when you first go in. And then I was taken to a little tiny office, and the inmate was in there. And when I walked in, there was a desk there, and he sat on one side and I sat on the other side. And there was a door. The door was closed, and the door had a window that went from the ceiling down to the floor. And one of the correction guards stood there while he walked back and forth, and he had a gun in his hand. Excuse me. And that inmate's eyes never left that guard. That his eyes went back and forth with the guard. And the inmate said, I have a sore foot, and he took off his shoe, put his foot on top of the desk, and said, take a look at it. Isn't it sore? So that was my introduction to prison ministry, and I loved it. And I went back, I think, for a couple years until I got transferred to another area.
Wow. Well, but that, I mean, would you say that to be a real prison minister, you kind of, by definition, need to be a people person?
Yes, because you're dealing with people all the time. You're dealing not only with the inmates, but with the correction officers and all kinds of people that are on the staff in the prison. Yeah. So you have to like people, first of all.
It's also a very unique culture. You were telling your story, and I was having flashbacks to my college days. My college girlfriend was in the social work program, and one of her first assignments as an intern was at Graterford Prison in Pennsylvania, where she was learning to become a counselor. And I remember thinking, as her boyfriend, I was scared for her, and boy, I hope she's okay. And she loved it. She absolutely loved being there, and ended up doing it for a couple of years before she switched to doing social work for adoption and foster care. But she was really into it, and how can I put this? I was about to say there's a great culture in the prison system, but it's a unique culture in prison systems that I think some people would refer to it as institutionalism, but it does have its own culture, and once you sort of become comfortable in that culture, it's like anything else, correct?
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yes. I on Tuesday evening I went up to Trenton for the annual ceremony to honor volunteers, and one of our volunteers from Southern State was the Volunteer of the Year for Southern State Prison. And I was amazed. It was held in a beautiful theater up there in Trenton near the War Memorial. Mm-hmm. And it was really crowded there, and it was an elegant service. It really was. And then later there was a big reception with lots of good food. But they must have honored, I would say, at least 20 volunteers from all over the state prisons.
Really?
In New Jersey. And most of the people that they honored were they had been in prison ministry for like 30 years. A long time. So some of them could, but they went up to get their award with walkers and so forth. So some of them were kind of elderly. But I think it's something that you either like it or you don't. One or the other.
Yeah.
What those people that you just were talking about who've done it for 30 years or more, did they explain what kept them going? What kept them volunteering?
Well, I it's a gift, I guess, a calling from the Lord, that they realize that the inmates are probably the most vulnerable of people right now, and the poorest of people, and many of them have no hope for the future. So in working with the inmates, they have found that through their work and with the grace of God, that they have found hope, and many of them have changed their lives around. We had a speaker who was in prison, was an inmate for, I think, 6 years. And he spoke about how the volunteers in the prison helped him to get his education. And now he has a very good job. And he was a guest speaker there, and he gave an excellent talk. So some of them do really turn their life around and become leaders when they leave, leaders in many different aspects. Now, it is sad that many of them return, and many of them do return because they find it very difficult in reentry, because their record will follow them probably the rest of their lives, and many people will not hire them. They can't find a job. They even can't find a place to live. People will not rent an apartment to them, and their families have deserted them, and a lot of them, if they stay in prison long enough, their friends have died or moved away, or their family has died. I always thought that the prisoners looked forward to their release date, but I'm finding out that that's not true. I've gotten letters from different inmates who are about to be released, and they're scared. They're very worried. They're afraid they're going to end up homeless on the street.
Yeah.
Just one of the, this is obviously fictionalized, but there was a movie, The Shawshank Redemption. There's a scene in that movie with one of the, I think he's a worker. I think there were inmates, what you were just saying, it's heartbreaking because they're able to leave the prison, but that's the only life they've known. And I can just imagine it's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's called becoming institutionalized, and it's one of the things that actually one of your coworkers, Kasana Owens, who handles the women's program and transitioning out of the prison system. Those halfway houses that I worked in many years ago, that was essentially what they were there for, was really for that transition phase. They found that that the recidivism rate, which is a fancy word for going back to prison, the recidivism rate goes down substantially when you go through a halfway house program and you become sort of reindoctrinated into society as you know it. And it becomes more important the longer you're in prison to break some of those institutional walls down, so that you get comfortable again with making your own schedule and making good choices, and where a prison ministry program, particularly let's call it an outpatient prison ministry program, would be effective is making sure that these prisoners, as they're coming out of the jail cell, have someone to go to outside the walls that they can be comfortable around and can help them find employment, find work, be that good representative of society, that sort of looking out for them, as opposed to maybe reconnecting with people from their past that might get them into trouble again. So it's funny you brought Shawshank Redemption is one of my favorite movies, and there is a lot of truth in that. Even though you're right, it is a fictionalized account, the emotions that are in it are very similar to what prisoners actually do go through. Because I think Andy Dufresne was in there for 19 years, and you see this sort of change happen. with him and his friend Red.
Yeah, and the other prisoners too, and just it's really, and one of the, it's you're talking about the relationships that they can form between the prisoners and the volunteers, the 6-year relationship. How does somebody get paired up? Is it something where the prisoner wants to talk to a volunteer walks in, and then how does that process work where a volunteer can pair, I guess, again, for lack of another better word, how do they get paired up? How does it work?
Or is it more group work?
Yeah.
Well, it's group work because they're not allowed to pair up.
So it's not one on.
That's one of the
okay.
rules of the facilities. That when they go in, they have to treat everybody the same. They can't do any favors for any of the inmates. And once they leave the facility, they're really not supposed to follow up with them.
Okay, so thank you for clarifying. I wasn't.
And each of the prisons is different in its own rules as well. Like in term, not necessarily the strictness of the rules, but each prison has its own security levels, right? So some of the lower security, like I've been in some prisons in New Jersey, it's more like a campus than it is a prison as people would be accustomed to thinking of some Eastern State Penitentiary or something like that. Right?
Well, there's different levels. There's maximum security, minimum security, and also medium security, and there's the farm. So there's all kinds of levels. Some of them have to they go out during the day to work and they have to return in the evening. Others are free to get jobs within the prison itself. But as far as the differences, I have been to several orientations just to get clearance to go into these facilities. And yes, there are standard rules and regulations in all of them, but then I call it their own personality. I think each facility has its own little personality. It's not major, but there's a difference in each one of them.
Yeah. And I still remember the first time I went into a prison and that big iron door closes behind you for the first time. There's a moment of trepidation, but then I just look at all the other guards and they seem comfortable. So long as I find, much like when I'm in a hospital, so long as the nurses seem comfortable, so long as the guards seem comfortable, I'll be comfortable. That's what everybody knows what they're doing. Follow the rules, and you're usually in pretty good shape. Yes. I'm curious, sister. When we bring people on the podcast, we like to talk to people about sort of their backgrounds, and I'm guessing that you're not from Jersey originally, right?
Yes, actually,
You
I
are?
am. Yes.
Okay. All right. So how did you get your start? How did you hear your calling to become a sister?
Well, actually, I guess it happened in the summertime. I was in college, and I was home for the summer, and I was looking for a summer job. And so I was looking at the one ads, and I answered a lot of them, and then nothing really was coming along. So I happened to look at the diocesan paper, and there was a picture in there of a sister, and she was very pretty. And it was one ad for that community. And I said, maybe I should look into this. So I wrote a letter and completely forgot about it. So about 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from one of the sisters, and she said, we got your letter and we're going to come up to visit you. And my first thought was, oh, no, I don't want these coming to visit me. What will the neighbors think if they see a bunch of nuns coming to see me? So I quickly said, oh, don't come to see me. I'll go to see you. So I did. I took the bus and I went down there, and I looked around, and they had not much of anything down there, really. And they were so proud of their chicken coop that they had there. They didn't have any chickens there at the time, but they were really proud of the fact they had a chicken coop and they raised chickens. And I said, I guess this must be the real thing, because I always heard that poverty somehow is involved in this. So the next thing I knew, there I was.
Really?
And they called me the new breed novice. They didn't know what to do with me because, I was a little rebel. So I wasn't there too long when they decided to send me out to teach school. So off I went to teach school. And that was another experience. I love adventure and different experiences. So that was, they called me in one night and they said, we're going to send you out to teach school next week. So you have a whole week to get ready for that. So I thought, oh, gee, good, So at least I can, get out of here. So then I got called in and I was told, well, we're going to send you in. This was Friday. We're sending you in on Monday to teach because we just got word that the superintendent is coming on Tuesday, I guess it was, and we want you to be experienced when he comes. So I went in and they said to me, when he sees that you're not really a sister, you're just a postulant, he's not going to really bother with you at all. But how wrong they were. He came and he sat in the back of my class and I thought he was never going to leave. But before I went, the sister said to me, now this is what you do. Here's the schedule and this is what you're supposed to be teaching at this time. And whatever you do, you make sure you're teaching this subject at this time. So he sat back there, and all I remember doing was changing subjects all the time because he sat there for so long. But I survived that, and it was an excellent experience for me because after that, whenever the superintendent would come to a school, well, everybody would get all excited about it, but not me. I was very relaxed because I said, look, I survived having only one day of teaching experience. So, now I've had a couple years under my belt. Well, this is going to be a breeze.
It's like being thrown right into the fire.
Right,
With all that. And this is probably the most important question I'll ask today. The ad, was it in our diocesan paper?
Yes.
It was the Star Herald. There we go.
Star Herald.
The power of that's wonderful. That's
It's funny. You've mentioned a couple of times your adventurous spirit. We've had a number of religious on the podcast over the years, and I find that is a common theme with a lot of our. I don't know if they're all religious, but certainly the religious we've had on the podcast, they've all been an adventurous sort, right, Pete?
Yeah, we had. We can tell stories with the sisters that we've had, and I actually know
not just the sisters. Father Chris Mann from his time as a Capuchin. They all seem to like the idea of not being in one place for too long and being thrown into things with little preparation.
That's me. Yes.
I have a friend of mine who joined I think the Society of Our Lady of the Most Holy Trinity, SOLT, and she was in South Dakota teaching on an Indian reservation, and last I heard she was in Seattle. So from New Jersey to South Dakota to Seattle, and that adventure, and how many years have you been in religious life?
A long time.
Oh, God bless you. And with
And you've been where around the country? Where have you been?
Well, I've been down in Alabama and Kentucky and Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, up and down the East Coast. I've never been out west, and I was in Guatemala for a while, too.
Oh, come to think, we didn't ask your order. Which order are you with?
Daughters of Mercy.
Daughters of Mercy.
And where in Alabama were you?
Well, I was in Moulton, Lawrence County. My job down there was to establish a priestless Catholic church in a county whose Catholic population was less than 1%. And I worked with for the Glen Mary Priest and Brothers, and it was a new program that they were just establishing, and it was great. I really enjoyed doing that. My biggest job was to go out door to door, just to let people know that there was a Catholic presence there. And I had so many wonderful experiences. Sometimes I would be met by pigs and dogs and goats and everything, and shotguns, and then other times I go knock on a door and someone would yell, "Come in," and I figured, well, they don't mean for me to come in. They don't even know me. And I'd be there knocking a couple times, and they kept saying, "Come in," and I'd go in, and we'd sit there. Now this was the South, and the South is different than the North.
Oh,
But
yeah.
we would be there
Oh, yeah.
talking away for a long time, like we were the best of friends, and then all of a sudden they would say, "Well, why did you come visit today?" And then I would say what I was all about, and usually I got a very good response.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So I asked about
That's Southern
Alabama.
hospitality.
Yeah, well, I know some of that hospitality. I have family in Huntsville,
Oh,
Alabama, and I'm kind of a Southern boy. I consider myself
good.
some way. My mother grew up in Arkansas. Did not grow up Catholic. So when I Southern, it doesn't. When I hear Southern, it doesn't scream Catholic to me. But it seems, it's.
Well,
Good
now
that
it
you
is.
could help
That's the area of the country where Catholicism is growing fastest. It's actually in the South.
in the South right now.
Yeah,
Forgive me, I did not.
People are moving down from the north to the south.
yeah,
They're bringing the church down there.
yeah. They're building. In Texas, they're building new churches at an astonishing rate.
That's good to know.
There's actually even conversations about buying churches in the Northeast and physically moving them down to the South because it would be cheaper than building a new church. Wouldn't you love to see
Wow.
one of our now closed churches get a rebirth in someplace in
Any
Texas?
ideas, Mike?
I love that idea. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a great thing.
Get on the highway, go
Yeah.
down. I know exactly how to go too, so I can drive that truck.
Even better.
I know exactly how to get to Arkansas.
Okay.
For
I like
years,
it.
for summers, for like 15, 16 years of my life, every summer, road trip to Arkansas and Texas.
I love it.
Just fun.
When
just
you
fun.
go, if you need help, call on me. All right.
I will.
Good.
Definitely.
That would be a road trip I would like to see memorialized on Facebook and Twitter.
Road trip.
Sister Mary and Pete heading down to,
that would be fun.
to Arkansas,
That
Alabama.
Anytime. It doesn't have to be any reason. We can just take a road. I mean, that's something that's so. To me, it's something I don't do enough for road trips.
Road trips, I agree. It's one of my favorite things in the world, and I do not get to do it nearly as much as I had to drive from Montreal to Glassboro, a year and a half ago, and I loved every second of it. And I had to do it through the night. That was a 8-hour drive for me, but I still loved it because it was
Night drives. Did you have good music or podcasts?
You knew better than to ask me about music.
Exactly.
Yes, I had. I listened
corrected
to
myself.
many podcasts. I sent out a tweet when I got home thanking Mark Maron and Chris Hardwick for getting me home safe by keeping me awake with the great podcast I was listening to, and Doug Benson. But
That's funny.
But yeah, speaking of unique things, I was talking to Kevin Hickey, the head of Catholic Charities today, who mentioned to me in the midst of a very brief conversation that he did not elaborate on, but I said that you were going to be on the podcast today, and he goes, make sure you ask her about her appreciation of Elvis.
I'm very interested in this. I've been to Graceland, so
So what was the connection with Elvis?
Well, I had 4 interviews for this job, and it was the 4th interview where Kevin decided that I was the one for this position. So we were in a restaurant, and this is the 4th time now, and I kept thinking, well, why did he call me in the 4th time, And we were looking at the menu, and I said, oh, this looks good. And he said, well, where is it? And I said, well, it's right here next to the picture of Elvis Presley. And then it was quiet, so then I started to talk about Elvis Presley, that when I was down south, I really got an appreciation of him. The first tent revival that I went to, and when the preparation with the Glen Marys to go out and establish this priestless Catholic church was every weekend we had to go to as many church services and brush arbor revivals and regular revivals as possible. So the first one I went to, the preacher looked exactly like Elvis. And he talked like him, and he swiveled his hips just like Elvis did. So I said, oh, gee, this is great. Now, I always liked Elvis's music. I always liked him. But down there, I got a real appreciation of him because then I think the next one was a brush arbor revival. And for the first hour, we sat there, and someone would stand up and say, "All right, who else is going to come up and give us a song?" And then someone would get up and sing and so forth. And I understand that's how Elvis got his start in music, that he used to sing for the churches.
Yeah.
And of course, I went to Graceland a couple times. And every time we had a visitor from the north, we always took them over to Graceland. And then where I lived in Alabama, it wasn't too far from Tupelo, Mississippi, and that was his birthplace. So I went over there several times, too.
Wow.
And then we used to go, there was another sister that went down with me, and the two of us, we used to go over to a Catholic church in Florence, and at the time it was staffed by the Benedictine priest from Cullman, Alabama. And one of the priests over there said that when he was over in Tennessee, Memphis, I think it was, where Elvis was, Elvis would ask him to drive him out on dates. And this priest would sit in the front seat of the car, and Elvis and his date would be in the back seat of the car. And he said, no one would ever dream that a priest would be driving him around in a car. So therefore, that's why he asked him. And then in the town where I lived in Moulton, his cousin worked in the pizza shop down there.
Oh, wow.
So that's my experience with Elvis.
We were talking about his he used to sing. One of my favorite. I went to Graceland and fell in love with Elvis when I was visiting Nashville, and I had family too in Memphis. So it's beautiful. I did not see everything I wanted to see. Mm-hmm. I need to go again, but there were two things I got there in Graceland. I got his greatest hits, which is awesome. But I also got his greatest gospel hits with How Great Thou Art and I think Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, all these. My mother being Protestant, that's when I grew up in visiting Arkansas. So the beautiful music. I think the hip shaking and the jailhouse rock and the what was that? Hound dog, that stuff is all the pop culture, but you forget the faith and you forget the spirituality of him, which I think
stuff. he recorded more religious music than popular music. I think that's one of the things they explained on one of my trips to Graceland.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it tough to sort of move back to this area after spending so much time in the South?
It was, yes. There was an adjustment period because in the South on Sundays everybody gets all dressed up to go to church, and up here, they come in their shorts and their I don't know, picnic clothes and so forth. So that was a difference, and also the lifestyle, it's much faster up here down south, at least where I lived out in the middle of nowhere is practically. It was much slower in the cities. That was different. So, yes, I miss the South in many different ways. Down south, if you walk down the street, you'd be talking to everybody that you would meet on the street like they were your best friends. But, of course, up here... there's, I guess, because of the great population up here, you'd be out there all day talking to everybody that you met on the street.
Yeah, I remember walking with my grandfather in Hot Springs, Arkansas, which was a big tourist place. He knew everybody. He was a local dentist. Everybody knew my grandfather. Hey, Dr. McWhorter, how are you? How are you, doctor? And that I miss that. You don't get that. There are a few communities I can say here in South Jersey, especially near southern Salem County, Cumberland County. There are a few places, villages. I'm like, wow, this feels very southern. And it is. I think at some points, isn't it, past the Mason-Dixon line?
All of South Jersey is under the Mason-Dixon line.
You forget.
But I often say
so northern.
There are elements of Millville and Collings Lakes that I've made this joke, but I mean it's kind of seriously that you could pick them up in the middle of the night, drop them in Alabama, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference because we actually do in southern New Jersey, very southern, particularly in the Pine area, that it really does have a real Southern feel to it, where you'll see NASCAR signs, you won't see NFL banners hanging any place, and I love that. I think it's one of my favorite things about, I people, particularly people from Pennsylvania and other places, will mock me that of my love of New Jersey. But one of the things I love about it is that, it's an area that has a lot of culture in it. You just have to kind of drive off the beaten path to go find it. But I love being between Philadelphia and New York City and D.C., but also knowing that I can go down to, the back bays of southern New Jersey, which really do have a very country feel to that, and I love that. Well, the only thing we don't have, there were times when there were a couple of good blues clubs in South Jersey, but they don't exist anymore, and that I actually do kind of bothers me. It does bother me a little, is that the music scene is not as good as it used to be.
One of the things that, you call me crazy, but one of the pleasures I have, my cousin grew up in Arkansas, but then she subsequently now is in the western part of Pennsylvania near Pittsburgh. And I had, looking back on it, it was very hairy, but it's something that, I mean, in the midst of it, it was a hairy moment. But looking back, it was awesome, because now she lives on the top of a giant hill. And the only way to get to her is to go up like almost a road where you're basically go 1 inch to the left, you're off the cliff. Mm-hmm. So, and I remember that from Arkansas, and just something about those hills and about the greenery, because they live on the side of a mountain practically. And that was where my grandparents lived, on the top of a hill. You could just see the Ozarks. It was beautiful. Mm-hmm. And there's just something about that we don't get, or you were saying the hospitality. Mm-hmm. And the slow down.
You were mentioning that, and I can't think of, as a true Jersey boy, I can't think of anything more frightening than somebody talking to me that I didn't know. I actively avoid, chatting with people as much as I can. Like I'm the guy that walks to the other side of the street just so I don't inadvertently have to nod my head towards somebody. But I can imagine that I might enjoy that a great deal more in the South than I fear it here in the North.
Do like a southern immersion, Mike. Spend a week in Hot Springs, Arkansas. They have bathhouses where you can go take a hot. It's
I'm
like
good.
a spa. Nope.
I'm good. I don't need to take a bath. I'm good. I'm an adult. But you do. One of the things I really do want to do is drive cross country a couple of times, like do a southern route, do a northern route. I'd love to go across Canada at some point, just because that's my favorite thing to do, is to drive along somewhere and hit the roadside places, usually for food, but also because that's really the culture of it. Like if I have to, we've had family down in Virginia Beach, and there are two ways of going down. You either go down the Delmarva Peninsula or you go down 95. And I loved going down Delmarva because that was off the beaten track, and you'd get to see, all the things you wouldn't necessarily. That had a true Southern feel to it. You stop by a Stuckey's on the way down or something like that, as opposed to just, the quicker drive down 95. But, well, sister, thank you very much for sitting with us today.
It's been very enjoyable being here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And we love having folks from Catholic Charities on, and I think I owe you some documentation to go to the prison mass in November, which I will get over to you soon, because I missed the last one, and I was truly bummed out about it. So I will be there. The only thing I request is see if I can get my camera through the door, because I usually like to take pictures whenever I go. But otherwise, I will be there with bells on.
Great. Yeah. Well, I look forward to that.
Thank you. And Pete, I will be seeing you around for the next week or so of all the myriad of events that we have coming up.
Yeah, we got another one in the vault tomorrow.
We'll have somebody else in the vault tomorrow, which we'll put up next week. Sister, this will go up tonight or today, actually, probably. Yep. We'll have this out. And everybody, thanks for listening in. So we appreciate it. All right, Pete?
All right.
Oh, God. I knew I should have ended it without throwing it to you, but all right, that's fine. There we go. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you again next week.